All right, we're recording this now. In 1840, Daniel O'Connell founds the Repeal Association, and he's trying to repeal the Act of Union. All the way back here, Act of Union in 1800. Okay, Ilha, what is the Act of Union?
Just like uniting like the Irish and Great Britain.
Okay, so the Act of Union is the act that created the United Kingdom. And it unifies Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England together in what is called the United Kingdom. Does that help jog your memory? Why are the Irish upset about the Act of Union? Yash or Raul? Either one of you?
It's supposed to have equality, but it doesn't actually.
Yeah, big shock, huh? Right? We've seen this a couple times that the British sell something by saying that they're going to be equal, and then it turns out that they're not, right? Yeah, so the Irish are not equal in the Act of Union. One of the reasons why they're not equal is that they're having to pay a tithe for the other church, right? The other reason is they're not allowed to own any property. Okay. So O'Connell wants to repeal the Act of Union, and he wants to give Ireland its independence. Now, he gets arrested in 1844. Now, he is the most prominent member. He is the only Irish person elected up into the parliament and stuff. He gets arrested and thrown in jail for this because the British Crown says that this is illegal, so that this is treason. So this is going to be the creation of a bunch of these secret societies. Okay. The first one is called the Ribbon Society, but the White Boys also show up at around the same time. All right. So the Ribbon Society and the White Boys, they're both very, very similar. Ribbonism or White Boyism. All right. So the Ribbon Society, we call them the Ribbon Society because they would wear like a green ribbon on their buttonhole, the buttonhole of their shirt, right? They would tie it into the hole and have a little green ribbon there, and then that would tell you that they're part of the society. And then you could take the ribbon off really easily if a cop was coming, or it's easy to do. And this is where we're going to start getting the very first time of branding Irish resistance as green. We're going to get that green color as Irish resistance. It's going to be really notable. And so the Ribbon Society and the White Boys Society, they both are these secret societies that are trying to get support for independence. Okay. Now, this is one of the things that the Irish movement is different from India or from South Africa. The Irish movement is different because the Irish movement is filled with these secret societies. There's hundreds and hundreds of these secret societies that are going to show up over the course of 60, 70 years. And these secret societies are all going to show up all the time. They're all illegal, and they are varying degrees of secret. Some of them, as you see, some of them are going to not be very secret at all. But we call them all secret societies because they're illegal, right? Because they're illegal, they're secret, right? So these guys are going to start resisting the British. Sometimes that resisting is recruiting people and getting things published. Sometimes that resisting is lighting soldiers' houses on fire. It just kind of depends. Okay. The Irish, yeah, let's deal with this. Yeah. So the Irish resistance is always going to take the form of this kind of like, haphazard, kind of almost a mob kind of war, right? It's not a real organized thing. But all of this comes to a screeching halt at the Great Potato Famine. The one thing that people all know about Ireland is the potato famine, and here you go. All right, so the Androchsal. The Androchsal is the Gaelic word for the Great Famine. Americans usually call it the Great Potato Famine. And the Great Potato Famine is caused by something called blight, the potato blight. The picture here on the screen is blighted potatoes, okay? The blight is a kind of fungus that infects the potatoes, and it makes the potato inedible. So the potato turns into this like black, mushy nastiness, right? You can't eat it. It'll make you sick. The blight actually happens in like waves. So in 1845, and then again in 47, and then way again in 48 and 49. We're going to get this blight, and it's going to hit Ireland. Now, here's some problems. Okay, the English are going to get completely blamed for this, and the English are going to get completely blamed for this. And this Great Famine is a transformative moment in Irish history. This is a very clear breaking point for Ireland, where nothing will be the same after the famine. So one of the reasons why England is going to get blamed is because of the land laws. Because the English are controlling everything, the English are forcing they're forcing people to grow things, and they're forcing people, they're making it difficult to move around and stuff, right? And so the Irish are all growing potatoes. They can't grow wheat because they live in like a wet, cold rock in the north of the Atlantic, right? It's terrible growing land. They can't grow cash crops. And so the British had forced potatoes upon the Irish. And so the Irish all grew potatoes. The British did this in order to try to solve the famine issues like 100 years earlier. Okay. Potatoes grow really well in Ireland, and Ireland had always had a problem with famines historically. And so, in an effort to try to fix this, the British had brought potatoes in and basically forced the Irish to start growing potatoes. Well, you guys know what a monoculture is in biology? A monoculture, when you're talking about like farming and stuff? I know for a fact you did it in AP geography, but do you guys remember what it is? Raoul saying, no, don't call on me. Tiffany, do you remember?
No, I don't remember. Sorry.
All right, Tiffany's house is so loud. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, sorry.
It's always the loudest house in the school. Yeah, Drew, you remember?
Isn't it just a farm that grows one single crop?
Yeah, it's a farm that grows one single crop, right? So something like the indigo down in Assam, right? Or cotton in South Carolina, or potatoes in Ireland, right? Usually it's a cash crop. It's not usually a food crop. It's usually a cash crop. But in the case of Ireland, it's a food crop, okay? What's the problem with a monoculture? There's a couple of big problems with monocultures. It's where you have the entire country covered in one organism, one type of a plant, right? What you're doing is you're really super screwing up the environment, right? You're really super screwing a lot of parts of the environment, but the part that we really care about is that you are vulnerable to disease. Now, in the case of potatoes, the potatoes in Ireland are all cloned from each other. You don't plant potatoes with seeds normally, right? Normally what you do is you take the potato plant, you take clippings from it, and then you take those clippings and you grow a new plant, which means that the second plant you grew is genetically identical to the first plant you grew. This means that the entire island of Ireland is eating literally the same potatoes, right? There's only like 7 or 8 organisms that have been cloned across the entire island. Okay, so if the blight hits and your potato is vulnerable, it wipes it out completely. Right? Do you guys remember studying what happened to bananas? Right? Bananas went extinct in 1951. You've never actually had a banana. Bananas are extinct. The thing you've eaten your life has been a Cavendish. Right? And a Cavendish is a new replacement banana because bananas went extinct in 1951. And that's why, have you ever wondered why artificial banana flavoring doesn't taste like bananas? Right? This is why. because artificial banana flavoring tastes like the bananas that went extinct in 1951. The Cavendish is a milder flavor, right? That's why we feed it to babies. Anyway, there you go. That's your moment in Banana Corner, in Mr. Veenstra's Banana Corner. Oh, that sounds a lot dirtier than I meant it to sound. That was unintentional, I promise. Okay, anyway, so all right. So the other problem with this is the corn laws. So England has corn laws in effect, and corn in this case means any kind of grain, including potatoes. Corn is just, they're using kind of the old timey use of the word corn. So all grains. What the corn law was basically preferential trading to England, where all products had to be sent to England, and were super expensive to send them anywhere else, right? So you got a super good price getting your stuff to England. So this means that even as the Irish potato famine starts to rage, a lot of the Irish people choose to starve in exchange for sending their good potatoes to England to get paid, because it's worth so much more money to send it to England. Now, this is going to become a huge problem, and the British will eventually they will repeal the corn laws in order to try to get the Irish to keep the potatoes and eat them, right? But the biggest problem is laissez-faire economics. The British are trying to practice what's called laissez-faire economics. Now, of course, we've seen laissez-faire a million times, right? Ilha, what's laissez-faire economics?
Like hands-free, like the government involved in like economics much.
Yeah. And the British like laissez-faire economics, right? They're unlike the French. The French like to control things. The British like to be hands-off. Well, laissez-faire economics is going to cause a huge problem, right? The same way it caused a problem for FDR in the New Deal, right? Or I'm sorry, for not FDR, for Hoover in the New Deal, right? The same way is when people are suffering, they want you to help, right? The Irish people are like, we're dying here, we need help. And the British say, whoa, free market, baby. Free market will save you. The free market will save you. If you were a better economic actor, you would just grow more food. You would just grow better food. Free market is basically what happens. The result is, as you can see on the slide, 1 million people die and 2 million people are going to leave the island. 1 million people die and 2 million people leave the island. Now, you guys do not seem surprised by that number, okay? You should. And I think part of the problem is that you guys are used to thinking of India numbers, right? We've just spent the last month talking about India, right? And 2 million people is nothing, right? 2 million people is like one neighborhood in Mumbai, right? Literally, it's literally one neighborhood in Mumbai. So you need to think this through. The population of the island is 4 million. Right? If the population of the island is 4 million, they lost 2 million to emigration and lost another million to death, then that's a very different number that we're talking about, right? That's a huge destructive number, right? All of the dark counties on this lost more than 30% of their population, 20 to 30% of their population through this entire area here, okay? The only things, these populations rose, this is Belfast, Dublin, and Cork, right? And that's because people tried moving into the cities, all right? But Ireland as a whole, there is nothing in Irish history that is as transformative as this famine, right? And this famine removed 2/3 of the population of the island. 2/3 of the population of the island gone. Okay, now those immigrants aren't gone 100%. The diaspora is going to be part of the revolution, right? The diaspora is going to be an important part, but they are gone from everyday life. They are gone from being farmers. They are gone from being production producers, right? And any kind of industrialization that was going to happen is now dead. After this huge, massive famine, the Irish look around, they blame it on the British, and the Irish from this point forward are going to be demanding independence. Okay, the next big number. Your next big number is Young Ireland. Now, I need to be 100% clear with you. Young Ireland is the name of an organization. This is a rebellion organization advocating for independence. Okay, the name of the organization is Young Ireland. I do not want you to understand it to be the youth of Ireland, right? It's not that. It's capital Y, Young Ireland. Okay, in 1848, across the entire continent of Europe, the entire continent of Europe experiences something like 24 revolutions in 1848. Okay, France is overthrown, Germany is overthrown, Italy is united, the Netherlands has a revolution, Belgium has a revolution, France has another revolution, Italy has like 3 or 4, right? Serbia, Poland, almost every country in Europe has some kind of revolution. And most of those groups call themselves Young Italy, Young Germany, Young Turks, Young Greece, Young Poland, right? And so Ireland is acting just like the rest of Europe at this time, and it's creating this organization. Now, this organization is, they are going to primarily be known as founding a newspaper called The Nation. Now, this newspaper is going to become probably the most influential newspaper in the early days of the movement. It's founded by Thomas Davis, Charles Gavin Duffy, John Blake Dillon. But by far and away, the star here is the woman named Speranza. Her real name is Jane Wilde, but Speranza is her pen name. And she's a poet primarily. And she is going to write poetry about Ireland and about an independent Ireland. So just like in India, poetry is going to be this vehicle of change that they're going to use. And they're going to turn a lot of her poems and Margaret Callan's poems. Margaret Callan wrote under the pen name Thornton McMahon. These poems are going to get turned into songs. They're going to like sing them in the bars and stuff. They're going to be like these nationalist identity poems. Now, Young Ireland is not going to stick around for very long. They're going to do something that is going to become, sadly, pretty common for a lot of Irish revolutionary groups, that a lot of these Irish revolutionary groups make the mistake of printing their plans in the newspaper and then getting caught. Okay, so the best example here is the Battle of the Widow McCormick's Cabbage Patch, which goes down in history as one of the greatest battle names you will ever encounter. The Battle of the Widow McCormick's Cabbage Patch. Isn't that like the most Irish thing I could have said? Right? Yeah. Okay. You guys should be more impressed with things. Things are funny, but okay. All right. So this is Young Ireland trying to have a revolution. They want to march across the country and they want to gather strength across the country and then march on Dublin and then overthrow the government and free Ireland forever. William Smith O'Brien is going to lead the charge, and he leads from Limerick here, and he marches. Now, Dublin is over here. Here's Dublin, way over here, right? This is as far as he gets. Because the British just read the newspaper and knew what was happening. The British knew where they were meeting. The British knew who was involved. The British knew what was going on. And so the British just caught them. They interrupt them on their way across Tipperary, which is this county right here. And so Young Ireland hides into the Widow McCormick's farmhouse, and they get into a battle at the Widow McCormick's Cabbage Patch. A battle at the Widow McCormick's Cabbage Patch, and they and this is kind of the end of Young Ireland. A lot of these leaders are going to end up getting arrested. Thomas Davis won't get arrested, but he dies of scarlet fever just a few years later. Charles Gavin Duffy, who is like the most revolutionary leader, he gets arrested and then exiled to Australia. While he's in Australia, he's actually going to become the governor of Victoria while he's down there. Yeah. As it turns out, fighting against the British was good politics in Australia. It made him very popular in Australia. John Blake Dillon, he escapes capture, but then he runs away and he moves to America. He moves to New York and becomes a lawyer. Right? The women don't get arrested because they're women. All right. I feel like I'm losing you guys. All right. We're going to stop here. We are going to stop here. You guys do have a discussion, which is from your textbook. You have a discussion from the textbook, and you also have, I have some articles with some assignments that I've been starting to post. I'm going to post like a total of 5 of them up there. And I think I have 3 of them up right now. You can get started on those. Okay. In class, we've been reading them in class. You guys are going to have to do it on your own, but I'm happy to kind of discuss it with you guys when you start reading them next week, right? But they're all due next week, so read them over the course of the next 2 weeks and get them turned in. Okay. Like I said at the very beginning, everything from quarter 3 is done. Quarter 3 is done. Your grades are final. What Skyward says is the truth, unless you. Unless there's something I missed, like if you legitimately turn something in and I give you have a grade on Canvas and then I forgot to put it on Skyward, then let me know and I'll fix the grade. Cool. Do we have questions or problems or comments, Ro?
Yeah. I came into class and I gave you my my notebook and you looked over it and you said, "All right, good." But in Skyward it shows a 0 out of 100.
You did do that. You did that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll fix that right now. I thought
Yeah.
you did that. I thought it was strange. All right, I'll fix that for you. I do remember you coming in. I do
Awesome.
remember you
Thank you.
coming in. Okay, sorry about that, Ro. I'll get it fixed. All right, anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right, in that case, you guys are free to go and enjoy your day. Cool, see ya.
Mr. Veenstra,
Yeah, what's up, Ilha?
I had a question. Sorry. So like, are there no more retakes available because I was gonna ask if I would be able to retake some.
No,
Because-
retakes were yesterday. Man, I was here until 5:30 with students retaking tests yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah, retakes are all closed, man.
so like the quizzes too.
Yeah, retakes are closed.
Okay.
I wanted to say something about those retakes. I know you said everything is fine right now. It's just I did do the retakes on time for
I know
the
you did.
quizzes.
And I graded them all this morning,
Mhm.
and you got the same score on most of your quizzes.
It's just, yeah, that's the word I wanted to raise the issue is I don't know exactly how we're supposed to improve our grades on the retakes because I know both tries I have the content and I'm missing something, but I
can pull yours up real quick. Yeah.
don't
Ilha, did you
exactly
need any?
understand.
Yeah, I can pull yours
I
up.
was just wondering, but if there's no more, like the grades are like completely final. Then. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask about like why I got a 90 out of 100 on my notes. I was just wondering.
Because your notes are so sloppy, man. Your notes are like the sloppiest thing I've ever seen. Hey, what are you guys seeing on your screen right now? Are you guys seeing my slides?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Ilha, your notes were so sloppy. Your notes are like the sloppiest notes in the entire 12th grade. Like I could barely read them. I could tell that you were like doing them, but I could also tell that you really didn't give a shit about them and you were doing them super sloppy and like obviously not in a way that you could use them as a resource. So, I mean, I gave you points, but I can't in good conscience give you full points for something that is so sloppy that you can't even see it. You can't even read it.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, let's pull yours up here. Quizzes. Sorry, was that too mean to Ilha?
Mm,
Was that too mean?
I
Okay,
think
let's,
yeah, it's fine, I guess.
it's fine. You're like, it's fine. All right, let's pull you up here.
Yeah, I think it's for 2, 3, and 4 that I did the retakes.
Oh, not
So
five.
not 5.
So the one I picked, not the one I picked. Okay. Now, all right, let's pull them up here. Quiz 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Give it a sec. It takes a minute. All right, here's 2. Where are you? Michael Lou. All right. You did worse on this one? You went down on this one? Okay. So describe how Talak and Gokal differ about the Swadeshi movement. Okay, so Swadeshi movement is the idea of economic self-sustainability and essentially independence from British control of the country's actions. Talak strongly supported this movement because he was a revolutionary change advocate. That's correct. As seen in well, you misspelled Ganesha. In the Ganesha festival, Talak is highly active in promoting Indian nationalism. Correct. He supported the concept of India being a strong separate nation from the British. Also correct, since Swadeshi means independence from British. That's not what it means. Swaraj means independence from British. Swadeshi means what? What does it mean, Mike?
Hmm?
Swaraj means independence from England.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Separate.
self-rule, yeah.
That's Swaraj. What is
Uh-huh.
Swadeshi?
It's more of an independent nation.
It's self-sustainability. Swadeshi is where the Indians are supposed to make their own stuff,
Mhm.
right? So far, I don't see that in here. I don't see evidence that you understand it. So since Swadeshi means independence from England, India from the British, which is wrong, it aligned with Talak's goals and he consequently favored it. On the other hand, Gokal very much would have opposed the sentiments embodied in the movement. That is 100% wrong because Gokal was an absolute advocate for Swadeshi. He advocated Swadeshi all the time. He was not opposed to it at all. That's totally wrong.
Mhm.
So he was an incrementalist leader, correct. He advocated for a partnership with the British, kind of correct. Although the British exploitation of India was there, Gokal believed that building a more cooperative relationship with the British could relieve the possibly even shift the balance towards a beneficial relationship. That's okay. So that makes your previous statement correct. These could elevate India at the same time. He wanted aspects of the country such as education to be built over time with that in mind. Since there's a clear connection that Gokal wants to form with the British, he would have opposed the self-ruling nature of the Swadeshi movement. All right, so that is wrong.
Mhm.
So you're just wrong about that because Gokal did not oppose it, right? You're also, the other part that's problematic is that it's not clear to me that you understand what Swadeshi means. Because at no point do you mention that it's economic, or do you mention that it's about production? Do you mention that it's about making things, right? There's nothing in here that says that. And I think that you answered the question for Swaraj, not Swadeshi. Does that sound correct to you? Does that
Yeah,
sound
that's fair.
okay? So let's look at your other ones here. Stupid thing. All right. Okay, so here's this one. This is number 3. Michaeloo. All right. So World War I had only a marginal impact on India's journey to independence. Oh, I remember this. Okay, so I'll read it, but as we go, I remember what your problem here is. All right, so World War I actually had a significant impact on India's journey to independence for hindering its progress in the short term, yet uniting the nation in the long term. I don't really know what that sentence means. As a result, World War I, the British government imposed new laws that named all nationalist activities illegal. Okay, this included the Defense of India Act and the Rowlatt Act. Okay, because the activity was forced to minimum levels, the amount of gatherings and planning events for independence was reduced. Okay, All right. Therefore, these acts were an obstacle in the journey to independence. Okay. Although the progress was somewhat hindered by these laws, some of what the British subjected the Indians to also unified the nation. Okay. So here's where you're getting into your problem. This is kind of worded in a weird way, but I can understand what you're saying, right? And you're saying that the British used World War I to slow down the independence movement, right? Okay. And they used these two acts to slow it down. So this makes sense to me. Your first sentence doesn't make sense to me. And then over here, you're making your counter argument, but your counter argument goes all the way down here. Like by the end of it, I have no idea what your argument is. You're giving me both sides of the argument and you're not taking a position. You need to make an argument, which means you need to make a position and you need to define that position. So let's look here and make sure I'm right. But although the progress was somewhat hindered by these laws, some of what the British subjected the Indians to was also unified the nation. During the war, the Gadar Mutiny happened where Punjabi diaspora was planning an uprising. They were primarily Hindus and had no connections to the majority Sikhs in Punjab, yet the British still terrorized the Sikhs. This is be seen as a betrayal since the Sikhs had a relatively cooperative relationship prior to the mutiny. Another decent portion of the nation, the Sikhs, added their numbers to the independence movement as well. Over the long term, this larger collective strength meant a more unified opposition to British rule, since this shift was a direct result of British actions. Okay, so half of your thing is telling me that it had a lot of impact. The other half of me is telling you that it didn't.
My argument is that Brit in World War One had a significant impact, and I'm trying to argue how the hindrances were significant as well as the other side was significant. I'm not saying either one is. It's sort of trying to just overall say that everything that the British did was significant impact.
Okay, I guess I can kind of see that here, but I'm telling you that this was confusing enough that I had to read it a couple of times, right, to try to figure out what you were saying, and if it's that confusing, I can't give it a 5, right? Because it's not clear. Like you would get this wrong on the test in May because the reader, you're making the reader have to like search too much for your answer. And I think part of the problem is that your thesis just is not a very clear thesis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you'd have to say World War I had a significant impact on India's independence for two main reasons. The first was that the independence movement was weakened temporarily during the war. And the second was that the Sikhs unified with the Hindus and Muslims in the independence movement. Right? I think that's what you're saying, but that's not what is here, and it wasn't clear to me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You didn't say anything wrong. Nothing is wrong. All of this is correct. This is really just like a 4 means that all of your information was correct, but your organization was such that it just wasn't clear. That's usually when a student has a 4, that's usually what's happening there. Is that the facts are correct, but the organization was not. I don't mind giving you the extra point. I don't think it really matters, but so if it makes you feel better, I'll give you the extra point.
I think for me, it actually does matter. It might affect your decision because right now I'm 2 points from an A, so it's pretty significant for me. But
that's fine. I'll put the extra point in. I don't mind. Do I even have a Skyward up on here? Okay. Yeah, I think your organization was just too, if I have to read it a couple of times, then
yeah, it's sloppy, yeah.
if I have to read it a couple of times, then it's not a 5. It's not perfect. Which one was that? 3? IPQ 3?
Yes.
All right. Where are we? Okay. Let's look at your other one here. 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Michaeloo. All right, Michaelou. Oh yeah, I remember this one too. All right. Okay, so Nehru approaching the United Nations in order to resolve the Kashmir conflict was a mistake. So Nehru approaching the United Nations to resolve the Kashmir conflict was a significant mistake because it never resulted in any resolution. Okay, right away, that's not a true statement, right? It did result in a resolution. The resolution was a ceasefire,
Mhm.
right? All right, but let's keep going. So since the United Nations didn't recognize the complete issue at hand, I'm not sure if that's a true statement or not, but on the surface, the Kashmir conflict was caused by religious division between India and Pakistan. This is deeply rooted in all the earlier tensions between the two. Furthermore, the ruler of the Kashmir region was a Hindu, whereas the majority of the population are Muslims. The United Nations recognized this problem, but only implemented a ceasefire on the boundary line. So all of this is correct. These 4 lines are all correct. Okay, these measures did nothing to resolve the conflict. I don't think that's true. Yeah, I don't think it's true because it's a ceasefire. Looking back, the United Nations overlooked the core of the fighting in Kashmir, the water supply. I'm not sure that that's a correct statement or not. I don't know if it is. But anyway, so the mountains and water runoff were supplied significant amounts of water to both countries, true. And both India and Pakistan wanted control, true. If they had addressed this key component, a more whole solution could have been applied and a resolution could have been reached. However, since this was not the case, the UN taking action was a mistake. So I think the biggest issue here is like your facts are all correct. The religious division, the Hindu king, the conflict between them, the water, right? All of that is correct. But I got a real heartburn with this. Didn't result in a resolution. It did result in a resolution.
Yeah, I think my idea was the long term, the conflict still persisted. That overruled the significance of the short term resolution that didn't exist, and I don't know. I just I over exaggerated the
Right.
the difference there.
So I guess I would just point out that we're 80 years later, and 80 years later, Kashmir is still divided along the same line, right? So that seems to me like the UN resolution is a pretty permanent resolution, actually, right? It's just a resolution that people aren't very happy about. So I think that I think your answer just misses nuance. It misses the nuance here of recognizing that it was a solution. It's just a solution that people didn't like. It was a solution that not everyone liked, right? Which kind of means it's the perfect political solution, right? A perfect political compromise. Nobody's happy with the compromise. Everyone is kind of upset about it. And so in that regard, it's actually kind of perfect. I think that's the problem. You make a pretty bold argument here, but the evidence you give me doesn't support that argument, right? And I think you would need to give me some different evidence to support this argument, right? Like if you were to say something along the lines of like the UN didn't come up with a resolution which has led to increasing conflicts over time or perpetual conflicts over time. Like if you had finished that thought, then maybe that would be, oh, this has been recording this whole time. Oh, crap.